Walk into any nightclub on a Saturday night and the assumption is simple. The money is at the bar, the crowd three deep, waving 20s, yelling drink orders over the bass. The taps running, the shakers going, $12 a pop for a vodka soda. That's what a nightclub sells, right? Drinks by the glass. But here's the strange part. Most nights, that bar rail is barely breaking even, and the club does not care. In fact, the busiest, loudest, most packed-looking part of the room is often the least profitable square foot in the building. Meanwhile, in the corner, at a roped-off table, 4 or 5 people are sitting almost completely still. They ordered maybe 3 bottles between them 2 hours ago. They are barely drinking, and that one table is covering more of tonight's rent than the entire mob at the bar combined. The room you'd point a camera at is not the room making the money. By the end of this video, you'll understand the actual machine running underneath the velvet rope. And it starts with a bottle of vodka. A club buys that bottle wholesale for somewhere around $25 to $30. Later tonight, that exact bottle gets sold at that same table for over $500, sometimes a lot more. We'll get into exactly why people pay it, and why the club needs them to. Here's another loop worth holding on to. For over a decade, 10AK in New York looked like one of the most successful clubs on the planet. Packed lines, celebrity photos, the kind of place that never seemed to have an empty night. Then it closed, owing $1.8 million in back rent. A club that looked completely full, right up until the day it wasn't a club anymore. We'll come back to what actually killed it. And one more thing to sit with. The person who waved you past the line tonight, got you in free, told you to come through, didn't do that out of kindness. The club paid them to bring you. Which raises the obvious question. If you got in for nothing, what exactly is the club buying when it pays someone to bring you through that door? So what does the club actually buy before you ever walk in? Before a single bottle gets sold, before the door even opens, the club is already deep in a hole. Start with the piece of paper that lets the room legally pour a drink at all. A liquor license. In a state like Wyoming, that license runs about $1,800. Cross into California, and the same piece of paper can cost $300,000 to $400,000. Not a bigger license, not a better one. The exact same right to serve a drink. The difference is that states like California cap how many licenses exist at all. So instead of applying to the state, you're buying one off someone who already has it. That's not a fee anymore. That's a toll on a monopoly. And even in a cheap state, you're rarely under $12,000 once the paperwork clears. That's before the room itself exists. Now build the room. Construction and finishes for a nightlife space average around $124 per square foot. A mid-size club, say 5,000 square feet, that's roughly $620,000 just to make the walls exist. Floors, bars, bathrooms, the DJ booth, the VIP risers, none of that is optional. Then sound and lighting, the part that actually makes people want to stay. A professional club-grade system starts around $150,000, and that's the low end. Add it up, license, build-out, sound, and you're already past $500,000. Real operators quote a full range of $250,000 on the cheap end to $2 million or more for a flagship room. Most people who actually pull this off need $1 million or more in total funding, and that number isn't even the whole picture. Serious operators set aside a working capital buffer, often $700,000 or more. That's cash held back just to survive the first year, because the first year almost always loses money. Payroll, insurance, marketing, all of it due long before the room turns a real profit. So picture what you're actually looking at when you walk past the velvet rope. A $1.8 million building that only opens its doors 4 or 5 nights a week, for maybe 6 hours a night, and only a few of those hours are actually busy. That's the paradox sitting under the whole business. How does a room open 20 hours a week ever pay back $2 million? The rail sure isn't doing it, so something else in that room has to. The rail is where the noise is, but it's not where the money is. A vodka soda at the bar rings up around $12. Strip out the pour cost, the ice, the garnish, the spillage, and you're left with a few dollars of real profit. Now add a bartender's wage, a barback restocking every 10 minutes, and a line of people getting impatient. 80 people at the rail over 2 hours might clear the club $800, maybe $1,000 in actual margin. That's the busiest part of the room, and it's the least profitable part of the room. Now look at the corner table. 8 people, 1 server, a rope, and 3 bottles on ice. That same bottle sells for $50 or $60 at your local liquor store. The club's wholesale cost is often lower than that, sometimes $20 to $30 a bottle. The table pays $300, $500, sometimes $7,500 for it. That's a markup that routinely blows past 1,000%. And that table of 8 just spent $3,000 in the same 2 hours it took the rail to make 1,000. But the markup isn't really about the vodka. Nobody's paying $500 for something they can grab off a shelf for $60. They're paying for what comes wrapped around the bottle. A reserved table means you're not standing in a scrum for 40 minutes waiting to order. Skip the line at the door, walk straight past the rope while everyone else waits outside in the cold. A dedicated server who comes back, instead of a bartender you can't even flag down. Security standing near your section, and enough space that you're not getting elbowed every 30 seconds. That's 5 things bundled into one purchase. The drink, the seat, the entry, the staff, and the room to breathe. Sell it separately, and nobody bites. Bundle it, and people treat it like the price of admission to their own night. This is why, at a high-end club, bottle and table service isn't a nice side income. It's 60 to 80% of total revenue. The bar rail, the thing that looks like the whole business from the sidewalk, is a rounding error next to it. But a table sitting empty behind a velvet rope doesn't sell itself to anybody. Before that $8,000 Saturday table walks in, someone has to make the room look like the place to be. And the strange part is, the club doesn't charge that person to get in. It pays them. So who is that person? And why does the club pay them instead of charging them at the door? They're called promoters, and their whole job is filling the room with the right kind of empty, not paying customers, not yet, just bodies. Young, good-looking, dressed well, dancing, laughing, making the place look alive from the sidewalk. The most common deal is simple: cash per head. Anywhere from $5 to $20 for every person a promoter walks through the door. Street-level guys, the ones handing out cards and texting group chats at midnight, usually land around $8 to $12 a head. Some clubs skip the flat fee and cut promoters in on the door charge instead, 5 to 15% of whatever people pay to get in. The best deals, the ones top promoters actually fight for, hand over all of the door plus 10% of the bar. Think about what that means. The club is giving away its own admission revenue on purpose, because the real product isn't the $20 at the door. It's the room looking full by 11. Nobody drops $3,000 on a table overlooking a half-empty dance floor. That bottle service crowd isn't paying for vodka, they're paying to be seen in a room worth being seen in. So the club subsidizes 100 free or cheap entries just to manufacture that feeling for the 8 people actually spending money. The crowd at the rail isn't the customer, it's the set dressing the real customer is paying to stand next to. And this runs deeper than one guy with a clipboard. Most clubs work through a head promoter, someone who's built a following of thousands over years. That person negotiates the big number with the club, say $30 a head for their whole crew. Then they take a cut off the top and hand the rest down to sub-promoters doing the actual street work. Those sub-promoters, the ones cold texting strangers and standing outside bars at 1 a.m., often walk away with $5 to $10 a head. It's a pyramid, and everybody below the top is working for scraps off someone else's negotiation. For years, this arrangement is close to perfect. The club gets a full room for almost nothing. Promoters get paid. The bottle tables feel like royalty. But it only works as long as the crowd shows up on command, and the room can absorb the free traffic without losing its shine. The moment that stops being true, the whole thing can come apart fast. And when it does, it's rarely the promoters who take the loss first. Here's what nobody tells you about that markup. Most of it never makes it to the bottom line. Underneath every bottle sold at 10 times its price, there's a stack of costs quietly eating the margin. Start with security, because in most cities it isn't optional, it's the law. Fire code and city ordinance set staffing ratios by capacity, so a 500-person room might legally require a dozen guards on the floor. Every one of those bodies gets paid whether the club does $10,000 that night or $100,000. Then there's insurance, and nightlife insurance is nothing like a normal bar policy. Liquor liability alone can run thousands a year because a drunk patron who hurts someone can sue the club that served them. On top of that, most clubs carry an assault and battery rider, priced for the reality that packed rooms with alcohol sometimes end in a fight. A standard restaurant never needs that rider. A club that skips it is one lawsuit from closing. Next, the comps nobody talks about out loud. VIPs, influencers, industry friends, half the packed table section some nights isn't paying full price, or paying at all. A club might comp a $1,500 bottle to get a promoter's friends in the room, hoping it pulls in 5 paying tables behind them. Sometimes that bet pays off. Sometimes the club just gave away $1,500 of top-shelf liquor for a photo. Then there's what happens behind the bar itself. spillage, overpouring, and outright theft. Bartenders shorting the register, pouring a free drink for a friend, or padding a tab. It adds up fast across a busy night. Industry estimates put bar theft and waste at a meaningful slice of liquor cost in a lot of rooms, quietly bleeding the rail margin further. But none of that is the number that actually kills clubs. Rent is. The exact thing that makes a room desirable, a huge footprint in a prime location, is the thing a landlord reprices the second it starts working. Look at 10AK in New York. For over a decade, it was the room. Jay-Z, Rihanna, the tables were legendary. Then the numbers behind the velvet rope caught up with it. Rent climbed to roughly $72,000 a month, and partner disputes piled on top of that pressure. The club fell $1.8 million behind on rent it once could have paid from a single strong weekend. It got evicted. The room that looked packed and untouchable right up until the end simply closed for good. That's the trap. Success proves the location is valuable, and the landlord just takes the proof and raises the price. A club can nail the bottle math, the promoter math, and every margin in between, and still lose the room to its own address. So if rent alone is enough to end a legend like 10AK, why do some operators turn one club into 40, while almost everyone else eventually loses the lease? Most clubs don't die from a bad night. They die from good ones, spaced too far apart. Because a hit Saturday can carry a dead Tuesday for a while, but not forever. Here's the pattern that repeats in city after city. An owner spends nearly all of it on the room itself. The sound system, the finishes, the bar, the license. Every dollar goes into the walls before a single guest walks through the door. Then the club opens, and the first 6 to 12 months happen. Cash flow is uneven. Some weeks barely cover payroll, some weeks don't. And there's no cushion left because the cushion got poured into the floor. That's how a club with a packed opening month is broke by month 8. The second failure point shows up later, once the room actually works. A landlord watches the lines out front for a year. Then the lease comes up, and the number changes. It's the same story that ended 10AK. Prove a room is valuable, and someone else prices that value out of you. The third failure is quieter, and it's self-inflicted. An owner sees an empty section of tables on a slow Thursday, so they cut the bottle minimum. Just this once, just to fill the room. Except that minimum wasn't a suggestion. It was the entire margin the business runs on. Cut it once, and guests remember. Cut it twice, and it's the new price. The room fills up, and the business quietly stops making money doing it. So what does the operator who doesn't fall into any of that look like? In 2003, Jason Strauss and Noah Tepperberg opened a club called Marquee in New York. It worked, but the part that mattered came next. They didn't just keep one great room running. They copied the machine underneath it. Bottle service, promoters curating who's actually in the building, a door that filters the crowd instead of just charging it. That system became Tao Group Hospitality. Marquee, Tao, Levo, and eventually 44 venue brands across multiple cities. No single lease, no single landlord, no single Saturday crowd was ever allowed to hold the whole business hostage. One room can lose its lease. A system built the same way 40 times over just opens the next one. So what does this actually look like once you stop watching one room and zoom out to the whole industry? The build-out number alone swings wildly, anywhere from $250,000 for a stripped-down room to over $2 million for a flagship. That's not a typo. It's the same business model, wearing two completely different price tags. A small operator in a cheap state might open the doors for $300,000 total. A Manhattan or Miami flagship can burn through $2 million before a single bottle gets popped. And Tao Group Hospitality is the proof this isn't just one lucky room's math. It's a repeatable formula. Marquee opened in 2003. Tao, Lavo, and dozens of other rooms followed. 40-plus venues later, it's not a nightclub anymore. It's a hospitality company that happens to own nightclubs. Same bottle math, same promoter pipeline, same table economics, just copied into city after city. But here's where you have to be careful, because not every bar with a DJ runs on this system. A neighborhood dive bar with a dance floor in the back makes its money the old way, at the rail. Beer, well drinks, maybe a cover charge on weekends. Thin margins, no bottle tables, no promoter army. That bar might clear a few $100s profit on a good Saturday night. This entire video, the bottles, the promoters, the door as a filter, that's the VIP table club, a specific format. Swap the bottle service for a jukebox, and you're back in an entirely different business with entirely different numbers. So scale isn't just about opening more rooms, it's also about squeezing more use out of the one you have. A club is only open 4 or 5 nights a week, a few hours a night, for the paying crowd. That leaves the room sitting empty, and empty, for a business paying 6 figures a year in rent, is a problem. So more and more operators are renting the exact same floor out as a day club on weekend afternoons. Same bar, same lighting rig, same square footage, just sold to a pool party or brunch crowd instead. Others rent the room for private events, corporate parties, birthdays, brand launches, on the slow weeknights. It's the same fixed lease, the same insurance, the same staff, just stacked with a second stream of income. A club that only makes money Friday and Saturday is gambling that 2 nights covers 7 days of rent. A club that also rents Tuesday afternoons to a corporate event is hedging that bet. Zoom out far enough, and the whole industry looks less like nightlife and more like commercial real estate with better lighting. The mechanism stays the same everywhere it works. Fill the room cheap, sell the table expensive, don't let one lease decide everything. So let's put real numbers on it. 2 clubs, same city, same idea, wildly different math. Club 1 is the cheap version. Total startup cost, around $300,000. The liquor license alone, if you pick the right state, ran $15,000 to $20,000. No custom build-out to speak of. A rented shell, some paint, a modest sound rig. It's open 3 or 4 nights a week, because that's all the crowd can support. Most of the money still comes from the rail. $10 and $12 drinks all night. A handful of tables get sold too, but small ones, $300 to $500 a bottle. Not the $3,000 minimum kind. The starter package for a birthday or a bachelorette. Run the math on a room like that and the margins are thin. Payroll, insurance, rent, spoilage, they eat most of what comes in the door. Payback on that $300,000, if everything goes right, is 2 to 3 years. And most of these rooms don't make it that far. Now the other version. A flagship club in a real nightlife city. Startup cost $1.50 to $2 million before a single bottle gets sold. A 6-figure liquor license, a full build-out, sound and lighting alone past $150,000. Here, bottle service isn't a side option. It's over 70% of total revenue. Tables run $1,500 on a slow night, $7,500 on a strong Saturday. Promoters are on payroll specifically to make sure the room reads as full by 11, because a full room is what makes that $7,500 table feel worth paying for. In a room like that, hitting 6 or 7 figures in a single weekend isn't rare. Payback on the whole $2 million build-out can happen in 12 to 18 months. If it's a hit, if the crowd stays, if the landlord doesn't notice yet. Because that's the part that eventually catches every flagship room, including one OAK. The better the room does, the more expensive staying in it becomes. So here's the actual answer. It was never about the drink in your hand. The rail was there to look busy. The promoter got you there for free. You weren't the customer that night. You were the inventory. You were the proof of a full room that made someone else's table worth $3,000 an hour.